LateNightParents.com. I have none other in the queue in the studio tonight. First time ever on Haps. Golf clap, Mr. Todd Vandenberg. Todd, how you doing?
I'll clap for myself. I'm doing well. Good to see you, Mr. Hicks.
Good to see you too.
Once again.
Looking great. Before we even get started on Snyder Cut, how has Club Quarantine been treating you?
Club Quarantine. I am actually yesterday passed my 1 year anniversary working from home. So that's how Club Quarantine is going for me. Kind of crazy.
Really?
Yeah. So hopefully not too much longer. But we are living in interesting times.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I think I might have started working from home slightly before you because it was like late February, early March.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked on a couple of occasions, and we're still home.
Yeah. Unbelievable, right?
We are still home.
Yeah.
Still dealing with this stuff.
Yep.
It's kind of like the smaller things in life you look at and you're like, okay, so what am I looking forward to? You know, not just, I mean, I'm talking about outside of life. We want to live. But yeah. I'm talking about you know, which movies are coming out. Oh, it's going to be MLB season. Oh, your favorite TV show that's coming on your favorite streaming service. You know, the fact that, you know, your kids, they were small and now they are large and quarantine.
pretty strange times for sure.
It really is. So wishing the best to you and yours.
And to you, sir.
Thank you. We still have our New York, Tennessee, Florida connection.
We do.
And we have the two most polarizing governors in our opposing states.
Don't we? Pretty amazing. Yeah, your governor's having a little more trouble right now than mine is. Sadly, I wish mine was having more trouble. For totally different reasons. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with your gentleman.
Yeah, it's we have I don't know, our governors. I mean, I'm not going to say that the job isn't hard, because the job is super hard. You are the number one person in the state making all the decisions for, you know, for us in New York is 20 million people. And for you in Florida, I think is it a little bit more or a little bit less in Florida?
A little bit less, but plenty.
Plenty.
Yeah. And it is a difficult job. And, you know, if the allegations are true, yeah, he should be in a lot more trouble than just having to resign. But that's the thing. It seems like when Democrats get in trouble, especially for these things, I'm going to resign.
That's it.
And Republicans get in trouble for this. It's like, no, I never did that.
Deny.
Yeah. I mean, Senator Al Franken resigned because he, you know, inappropriately touched someone a little low on the back.
Yes.
And how many accusations were against the former guy? 25 allegations of sexual assault?
Yes.
That's a little different. Little bit
different. And it was deny for, I would say, about a 5-year stretch.
Yeah.
It's leading up to it.
Yeah.
So we deal with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, the world is all crazy. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the Snyder Cut. I just wanted to get a few things out of the way. You know,
the less important things.
yeah. You know, they're jamming sports down our throats. And they're like, hey, we got to get people back in there. And I'm like, how about getting people vaccinated first before
Yeah.
selling them a ticket to go to your game. Hey, I just want to let you know, I was looking at attending last week's Nets and Celtics game, which was at the Barclays Center.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 100 section for 2 tickets was a total, and they were only allowing 1,300 fans in the venue. Ready for this? Drum roll, please. $650 per ticket.
Oh my God. Who is going? Oh my God.
I don't know. I was just like, really? Come on, $650 per ticket, and it doesn't include. I'm sorry, this is a family show, but at least you would hope it included a lap dance or something.
Something. That's a little pricey.
You know, bottle service, something. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, spring training tickets, which aren't necessarily cheap to begin with, but I'm checking the price right now at the ballpark, which is right by me. It's $69.
Right.
For a spring training ticket, and that's the cheap seat. The nice seats are $170. That's a ticket for a game which is meaningless. Which you may see some scrubs who are going to wind up in Double A, and that's all you're going to see.
Yep.
I love spring training, but yeah, no thanks.
I will say this much.
Yeah.
Todd, I had the pleasure of at least a couple of years of sharing the mic with you on Nikki X, Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue with the great Lee Val and the real Rob Steele.
Indeed.
And Murph. So
and the chair.
Hey, I do want to let you know that I did upgrade, because I know it's been on the back of your mind. I did upgrade my MacBook, so no more Megatron sounding recordings.
That's actually kind of sad.
It's like I listened to all the old Blog Talk shows, and at like the midway point, I just go Megatron-ish or Starscream-ish.
Very, very strange. It's a very strange occurrence.
All the time. I was like, oh my goodness, this is such a pain in the, So now that we got some of the formalities out of the way, now that we talked about COVID, we didn't talk about stimulus checks and the fact that last Saturday, you go to any Walmart, Costco, BJ's, or Target throughout America, that Saturday morning, there were 65-inch screen TVs on pallets at the front door.
Of course. And what were they priced? Let's see. Actually, at Walmart, they were probably 2 for $1 for $14.
Right. And
yeah,
that's how they prey on our brethren that are out there.
Yeah.
But all right. We beat up on everyone. Says hello to everyone. Hey, I want to let you know I did get the vaccine.
Happy to hear that.
I did get the vaccine.
Haven't had a chance to get mine yet, but hopefully soon.
Something that they were doing in Long Island, something special, and I was like, hey, for $19,000 a year in taxes, I need to get something special out of this.
Wow, yeah.
So
they should at least throw in a ticket in the upper berth.
Something. I'm like, geez. So I think, we got everything out of the way. So, hey, there's this thing called Justice League Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder's Justice League. We panned the movie when it came out did it come out in 2016 or 2017? 2017. So we panned that version of it because back then you were on Late Night Parents when we did the AM radio show at 1240 AM WGBB.
Indeed.
In Merrick, Long Island. So big shout out to our folks at WGBB, and we destroyed the movie. We destroyed all aspects of it because it was a Frankensteiner.
Yeah. And it should have been destroyed. I mean, it's not as bad, in my opinion, it's not as bad as Batman v Superman, but it's still a bad movie.
So in preparation for not only this live stream, but in preparation for Zack Snyder's Justice League, last night I skimmed through B versus S, and I watched the Frankensteiner Justice League. It was painful.
It was painful. It would be better if Rick and Scott Steiner were in it, but
yes,
sadly, not. Sadly, they're missing.
Love the reference. Oh my goodness. Eventually, we're going to get together and talk a little AEW versus WWE versus, WWE versus everyone else now. It seems like the world is teaming up, and I love that fact. Yeah, it was a Frankensteiner. It was just like, there was just so much.
Two entirely different visions in one movie, and I'm not sure that either vision would have worked, but together they sure didn't work.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, either they should have released this version 4 years ago, but we know, Zack Snyder and his family went through a tragedy and everything else like that, which was horrific, totally horrific situation. But that 2-hour runtime movie was an utter mess. There was, like I said, there was so much dialogue in there that was questionable. So, I mean, we finally get to, the social media campaign for release of Snyder Cut. I mean, you got to give it to them.
Oh yeah.
The fans made this happen.
Yeah, the fans did make it happen. I won't say anything. I was about to give a little bit of spoiler teaser, but it's like, congrats to the fans, because they did definitely make this happen. This was not going to happen without this campaign.
First question I have for you is, so what happens if you live outside the United States and HBO Max is not available? Are you just screwed?
Of course not. You pirate the movie. Not that that's what I'm advocating, but that's what's going to happen, which is kind of an odd decision that they just said. I mean, what was the rush to release this now? Why didn't they just wait because they have international launches coming later this year. And the original movie made 3 times as much money overseas as it did here. It only made $230 million in the U.S.
Right.
And yet the gross was, I think, $850.
Right.
So the market is overseas. So I'm not quite sure. To me, this speaks that Warner's really just felt like dumping this, and there's a lot of reasons I think of that. We'll get into that, but it makes no sense to release it now, because what is it leading into? Nothing.
Will we use the term cul-de-sac tonight?
Yeah. I picture we might. or dead end, gravel road. I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll figure out what we're going to talk about.
I mean, and it's not ethically right, but I'm going to say, if you're not living in the United States and there's a release date that's coming later this year, I would advise you to purchase a VPN.
VPN, that's your friend. Yep.
A VPN is your friend, and make it happen. Point it towards US, and there you go, baby.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on this version finally getting released? Were you like, thank goodness? Was this everything that you? Were you like clamoring, counting down days for this movie, Todd?
Oh no, because I've seen Batman v Superman. I was terrified of this coming because that movie is so bad. And Justice League, and granted, Justice League, the theatrical cut is like half of Snyder's vision, but it's still pretty bad.
Right.
And I like some of Snyder's movies. I really like 300. Mm-hmm. Generally, 300 has good vibes. Most people don't like Watchmen. I think Watchmen is terrific. I mean, he's done some terrific movies. He's also done things like Sucker Punch.
Right.
So he is, I mean, this dude is all over the map. He has some high quality work, and he has some just horrifically bad stuff that a fifth grader wouldn't put out. It's just bizarre how varying his work is. So, and based on the trailers, because personally, I think the trailers for this were horrifyingly bad. The graphics.
The theater or this version?
This version. The trailers that we've seen, to me, the special effects look like it was like some game I played in 1993 on a PS1. I mean, it was just, seriously, dude? The only reason I know this is supposed to be Darkseid is because he generally has that shape and he's kind of gray. It's like, other than that, how's this Darkseid? So they improved on it in the movie. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I had very low expectations. I actually told my kids, is like, to me, this is in the running. Which is going to be worse, this or Cats?
So
yeah, that's what I expected.
I wrote down a note here. So New Gods is supposedly coming out with Ava DuVernay.
Yep.
And they're going to explore Darkseid. So I'm guessing he's going to look a lot different than he looks in this movie.
I hope so.
You know, but in all fairness, do you remember seeing Thanos in the Avengers versus Thanos?
Yes, at the very
Endgame.
Oh, huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Darkseid is not a cameo in this movie.
I know.
If Darkseid popped up, if it was Batman v Superman and it's a little cameo, then it's acceptable. But compare Darkseid or Steppenwolf, which always just makes me think of the band, and it should make me think of the novel. It shows like how bad my cultural references are. But compare their appearances to Thanos in the actual movies that matter. It's like there's no comparison. Thanos looks like he could be real, despite the fact that he's like 9 feet tall and blue.
Yes.
These are obviously CGI characters. Incredibly, horrifyingly, obviously CGI. And it's the whole time I'm watching it, it's like, yeah, okay, it could have been better. Why is he so shiny and it's like,
and sparkly.
And sparkly. You know, it's like, were you watching Twilight before you decided to make this? It's like, oh, let's make it really sparkly, dude. I really don't get it.
A quick question I do have for you. Could you explain to me? Just help me out. What was the deal with the 4:3 ratio versus, like, what am I missing?
You're missing, and I was missing it too. I had to check on. Was like, what is your concept? It's because he fell in love. He, being Zack Snyder, fell in love with the IMAX ratio.
Oh, okay.
And that's the IMAX ratio. And he says, you know, that the action fits this genre better in IMAX, which I totally get that. Makes sense. Here's a clue, buddy. You knew this wasn't coming out in IMAX when you're doing the reshoots.
Right.
The original thing, totally get it. You know, because you were working and you're going to do an IMAX, and not that it was shot in IMAX, but portions of it, I believe, were. I get that. But you knew this was not going to be out in the theaters. You knew this is going to be HBO Max for the most part. What are you doing shooting for IMAX for something that's not in IMAX? I don't get. So I did read a review that it's great on an iPad, so that's terrific. Okay.
Because I was
there with an iPad 6 inches from your face, and it's like it's perfect.
I was wondering, should I change the ratio on the TV? I was sitting there questioning, like, why is this coming on like this? I'm like,
you're going to chop off the top and bottom. So yeah, you just deal with the bars on the sides. You know, and I thought that I had read beforehand that it was going to be 4:3, and I had forgotten it, and it came on. And I was like, what the hell? And then. Oh. And I totally didn't bother me after, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 minutes, which is still during the credits. So So, I mean, it was just a few minutes and it was like, yeah, okay, I just got absorbed into it. So it didn't really bother me. But it is an odd choice to release it in like the IMAX ratio when it's not headed to IMAX. He made some really odd choices here. And I understand why he made them. I just think it's like weird.
Do you think just like in the back of his mind, he was thinking, okay, I can get this back out in the theaters? And,
And,
you know,
and hopefully eventually it does get back out in the theaters. I mean,
okay.
that would be cool. You know, and then, and I have no idea how much of this was shot in IMAX. As far as I know, not much, because I haven't really heard anything about it.
Okay.
But, you know, if it goes out to IMAX, cool.
You know, like
But,
something like a Christmas Day. Hey,
sure, exactly.
you know, we're releasing it for the next 5 days over the Christmas week
Yeah.
in the theater. I don't know. I was kind of stuck. I guess I'll get into favorite act. First, second, third, or the epilogue.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Let's talk about that. What is the concept of he wants to do a 4-hour movie? Because it wasn't his decision to do a 4 separate 1-hour episodes. That's what HBO Max and Warner's was going to do. And then they finally decided, let's just do a movie. Why do you have all these separate acts and with these title cards? It's just an odd choice. I mean, the titles make sense in the context of the film, but why are you breaking this up? It's to me. I mean, I wrote a little blurb that said this is a. I can't remember. I think I said this is a good 4-hour trailer for a decent 2-hour movie. I mean, it's so disjointed, and that separation into the acts breaks it even further apart. I really don't understand why he chose to do that, and to kind of remind people, oh, we're jumping to this scene now. It's like,
right.
Odd choice. Odd choice.
I was just okay. So I didn't, you know, and I guess I went in it with an totally open mind because I tried to stay off the internet.
Mhm.
I was under the impression it was going to be the 4 episodes. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking and I'm like, it says 4 hours and 2 minutes runtime. I'm like, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess. Big question. Of the 4-hour and 2-minute runtime, was it one sitting for you? Because it was multiple for me.
This came on at midnight Pacific Daylight Savings Time, 3:00 Eastern, and I set my alarm and I got up so I could watch it before I went to work.
Okay.
And I didn't quite get there because I have a 7 a.m. student, so I didn't quite get there. I had to wrap up basically the epilogues, plural.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about that during lunch. So basically, I saw the movie in one sitting.
Okay.
And I had a lot of issues with this movie, but it was worth it to me because it would have been worth it if I hated it just because I wanted to see what this is going to be like, because this is a big cultural thing. Whether people like it or not, it's still kind of a big thing when you have this $800 million movie that there's an alternate version. How often does this happen? Oh, let's see. Never. So, and especially when it's the fans who drove this into existence, like you said. So this is a big deal. So yeah, I watched it in one sitting. Gosh, which act is my favorite? I don't know if one act stood out for me. I would say certain character arcs stood out for me. Ezra Miller as Flash, I really enjoyed his arc. I liked the fact, for the most part, that he had time to expand these characters, and God knows in 4 hours you ought to expand on these characters, right?
Yes.
There were some characters that I don't think really should have been in the movie at all, because if you're going to put them in, do something with them instead of, oh, look, he's there, whatever. That's doing a disservice to those characters. So Cyborg, to me, was the least interesting character, although at least he's better now than he was in the theatrical cut. Theatrical cut, that character was a waste. An absolute waste of space. This time they gave him an arc. They gave him some interest. He had a chance to actually act. So happy for him, because he had nothing to do basically in the theatrical cut. So that was nice.
Just his backstory.
Yeah, I don't even care that much about that character. I mean, the way, especially the way he's portrayed in this, and now it looks like Ray Fisher is not going to be working. Not that Joss Whedon is in the picture, of course, but I mean, he has an issue with one of the heads of Warner Brothers who is still there, so it's not likely he's going to be back. And frankly, if they recast Cyborg or eliminate the character, that'd be fine.
And he's like, he's got a beef with like an executive.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
So
I do want to give a quick shout out to Tony D from Warner Robins. Thank you for joining in. Just to let you know, Tony, Todd Vandenberg is new to HAPS, so make sure you give him a follow. But as always, thanks for supporting. So,
thank you, Tony.
He has a beef with an exec. I'm like, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not a A-level actor. Sorry.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because from everything I've read, he's got a very legitimate beef.
Oh yeah.
You know, and best of luck to Mr. Fisher. Hopefully everything comes out great for him. But Warner has made some really odd choices overall, and to support. And again, this goes back to what we're talking about with your governor. I mean, there's allegations being thrown around, but nothing's been proven. Nothing's really been investigated for that part. So, who's to say which side is right? Typically, the accuser's right. So if I'm going to believe one side or the other, I'm totally going to believe Ray Fisher on this. But yeah, he's, like you said, he's not going to win this one. So move on and get a better role, better parts, and just keep on going, man.
Tony D, the Zack Snyder's Justice League is available now if you have HBO Max. It's available like the minute you power it on, you'll see it.
All 4 hours and 2 minutes of it.
All 4 hours and 2 minutes of it. So first, second, third, or epilogue. Some memorable points from the first. It's like there were certain parts of the theatrical versus Zack Snyder's which were identical.
Right.
Certain scenes. But then there were some scenes I was like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm glad you added, that additional verbiage and dialogue in there. I do want to say, hang on one second. You're listening. Great to have you listening. Oh, okay. Hey, do me a favor. Just hit that lock. Hit the lock. Yes, it's in red. Yeah, it's private. So that way you can respond back to people.
Perfect.
Okay.
You just don't want me to curse publicly. That's what it is.
Oh, yes, I do. So I can ask you, in the beginning, and I'm not sure if this was the first or second act, Iris West, but she was never actually named.
She was not. It's a non-speaking part, and she's never named. That's one of the characters I'm talking about. It's like, why?
Yes.
Why bother? I mean, in a way, it's kind of like, oh, that's fan service. That's kind of cool. But it's like, you've got 4 hours, dude. That's the thing. This is not the 2-hour theatrical cut. It's like, oh, man, we got to hit these beats. I don't have time. You had 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Said, hey, I'm Iris. You could have had something happen instead of just, oh, that's a cute little beat.
And supposedly she's going to be in the Flash movie.
Yeah, right.
But hopefully she has a line.
She better have lines in the Flash movie. My God. Yeah, that's a movie I'm really looking. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to the Flash movie or not because, man, they have a high bar. They have 2 high bars to live up to. They've got the comic and the animated movie, which is like one of the best superhero movies, period, not just animated. So
I don't see them topping the animated movie, The Flashpoint. I don't see it at all.
Close, I'll be happy. If they come close, I'll be happy.
What's your thoughts on the Flash TV show on the WB? You ever watch it? Not engaged?
I've seen 2 or 3 episodes of it. I've seen 2 or 3 episodes of Green Arrow. I've seen about 4 episodes of Legends of Tomorrow, and no. I think we've talked about it, but Supergirl, perfect example. There's a character named Martian Manhunter. Spoiler alert, he may show up in this movie. He is in Supergirl, and his weakness, which is an odd weakness, but it's his weakness, he's weak against fire. He's incredibly powerful, but you throw a match at him. There's a famous line in one of the animated flicks where Batman says, is like, all I have to do is, carry a book of matches, I can handle you. So some villain has like a blowtorch and he's aiming at Martian Manhunter, and Supergirl like jumps in the way, but then they throw it and then she ducks, and it's back to like 1954 when George Reeves ducked because someone threw a gun at him, and he's Superman. It's like, dude, they're shooting bullets and they bounce off your chest, but you're going to duck from a gun? And here it is. It was 2017 and Supergirl is shying away from some fire and is like, you guys not know what this character is? And this happens in all of the DC TV shows, the live action ones, not the animated ones. But there's a scene in Titans, again, not the animated, but the live action, when Robin gingerly trots down the stairs because he's not a world-class gymnast superhero where he can just jump off a balcony.
Right.
He's got to trot down the stairs to get to the person he's trying to save. It's like, write it differently. My God, if you can't hire a stuntman who can't jump 12 feet, write it differently. Don't put him on a balcony to begin with. What is wrong with you people? And this always happens in their TV shows at some point. And it's like, you guys have never read a comic. I don't know what the hell you're doing.
DC Comics and DC Animation, second to none.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic.
Compare
Marvel animation to DC animation, it's like pretty much non-existent.
Yes.
I mean, there's some, and there's some that's good, but it's like DC animation is just miles above anything anyone else is doing, usually.
Tony D says Justice League Doom. He mentioned that great animated
absolutely
movie.
One of the best.
So, second act, I'm going to say is blasé. The third act, it did heat up. It really did heat up. Like the last...
It did.
45, 50 or so minutes. Or, I would roughly say about an hour. But for all the fanboys and fangirls out there that are saying, oh, it rivaled Infinity Wars or Endgame, stop it.
For God's sakes, stop it, please.
Stop it.
This to me, this is like middle of the road DC movies. Middle of the road. And I'm not counting Nolan's Batman movies because they're not really part of the DC.
No, they're not.
View.
They're not.
So this is up there with Aquaman. This is up there with the first Wonder Woman movie, not the second, because that thing is
it's a train wreck.
It is a train wreck. That's one thing. There's a lot of things in this movie that I like. Wonder Woman is doing something which makes sense in this movie instead of stopping a 2-bit jewelry heist, which is what she's doing in Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah.
Like, really? Wonder Woman? And you're basically having her be Paul Blart Mall Cop? Are you kidding me? That was terrible. So they actually had something very entertaining and engrossing for Wonder Woman to introduce her character in this movie. So there are lots of really good set pieces, but the problem is there are all of these long pieces which they didn't really have to have. I mean, this could have been a 2.5-hour movie taken out. The whole bit with Iris was like, why? I mean, it's kind of a cool thing. It could have just been a random person for all that was there. The whole thing with the guy who's going to be the new Adam. But again, you got 4 hours. Let him be Adam. Martian Manhunter shows up, and he's in trailers. So, sorry if it's a spoiler, but he shows up.
Right.
But they don't do anything with him. One of the original members of Justice League, and they do not, even in the part that he's in, they don't do anything with him.
Yeah.
It's like, what a waste. What are you doing? And you set it up so that he's already in Man of Steel.
Right.
And he's already in Batman v Superman, and you still do nothing with him. And it's like,
when I finally saw him change,
Yeah.
and I said, "Oh my goodness!" I said that was a slow burn.
Yeah.
That was a slow burn, and I said, "Oh, okay." And I was happy for it, but not to do anything else with them. I mean, the Ryan
Right.
Joy piece, like I see Star Labs having, of course, it's going to, you know what? I can see Star Labs being an HBO Max series.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe, I mean, if this gets enough new subscribers, because that's all they're going to get out of it is new
Right.
subscribers. Maybe then they'll say, it's like, oh, welcome back to the Warner's family. Is like, run this for us. And it's kind of a crapshoot because who knows what they're going to get with Zach. He's just so uneven. If they get this, I think they would be happy with it.
So here's what I'm thinking, Todd. As we chew and tear this movie apart, if they give if they give Zach HBO Max as his platform,
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, we're going to keep you out of the movies, but we're going to give you a universe on HBO Max, and you can bob and weave and tie your shows together and various, acts there. I think he would be happy with it.
Oh my God, depends how much money they're going to give him, but I would assume they would be handing over a pretty healthy paycheck, as they should.
Right.
And, give him creative control, which this whole thing is Warner's fault because they're the ones who were not happy with his original vision, who wanted it to lighten it up to match Marvel, which I have the problem with Batman v Superman wasn't so much the tone, it was the execution. The problem with Man of Steel was definitely the tone. It's like, dude, He's not Batman. He's the opposite of Batman. It's a light character.
Yes.
So you really screwed that up. Batman v Superman is just atrocious for a million reasons. But Justice League, the tone isn't the issue. That's not really the issue with this movie that I have. I have that it's just way too. And Tony D says he'll probably do some mega DC movies. I'm feeling it, and we'll see. Could well be. All depends on what the performance is for this, what they get out of it. But I can see him doing that. I can see Warner's having a long conversation with him too, and saying, "Okay, this is what we're looking at. This is what we want. We don't want to hear Hallelujah." And I understand why he put Hallelujah in the trailer. I understand why Hallelujah plays during the end credits. That was his daughter's favorite song.
Gotcha.
But are you going to honor your daughter, or are you going to honor the artistic vision?
Was that the longest epilogue that you've ever seen in your life?
That was longer than Return of the King, and that was like endless. And they were interesting. It wasn't that they were boring and dry, but it's like, dude, the movie's over. Oh, wait, no, the movie's over. Wait, the movie's over. Wait, the movie's over. It's like, and they weren't quick hitters either.
No, they weren't. They weren't.
And pointless, basically.
Is it
they're setting up movies that are never going to happen unless he gets, an HBO Max.
Right. And that's where I guess we get caught up, because I'm like, okay, you're planting seeds along the way, and then that entire epilogue was like scene after scene after scene after scene. And I'm like, okay, I can see where, and we'll get into this a little bit later. I can see where you're going potentially for Justice League 2 or 3, but I don't even think that's happening.
Right. By all accounts, nothing's happening. And originally, apparently, he wanted to do 5 Justice League movies, which is an odd thing to plan 5. I can see planning 3, but to plan 5 is a really odd, because what arc were you going to follow? I mean, we know the Darkseid would obviously be the second.
Right.
And then at some point, Lex and his the Legion of Villains, I can't remember what the thing is, but I apologize because I should remember.
No, Legion of Doom.
There. Yeah, Legion of Doom should be in there. But, you know, okay, then maybe they'll do Vandal Savage. And there's obviously millions of villains that they could do, but that's an odd thing. It's like, well, I was going to do 5 movies. Almost, to me, almost smacks of when George Lucas, you know, decided once Star Wars was a big hit. It's like, oh, I was always going to do 3 trilogies. It's like, clearly you weren't, since you had a brother and sister just about knocking boots, buddy. You had no concept of what you're doing. So stop with it, you know? It's like, at least Zack Snyder didn't do that.
Question. Kind of question. I'll start off with a statement. I'll say thank goodness for this version of Steppenwolf, because the other one was weirdish and kept referencing. Remember last time he kept talking about Mother?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the way Steppenwolf is rendered in this movie or Darkseid, but as with much of this movie, it sure beats the theatrical cut.
Yes. True.
Yeah. Mild theatrical cut. But, you know, again, it's like when the bar is like a quarter of an inch off the ground, you don't actually have to go very high.
That's true. So when would we expect Darkseid to go full Darkseid with the Omega Force? Is that Justice League 2? Because it's obviously it's post stare down when they're in the boom tube. Is that Justice League 2 or 3?
I'm thinking if it's the close of, if there is a Justice League 2, and this is obviously, there's no plans, there's absolutely nothing announced. We're just kind of spitballing as like if Zack gets HBO Max universe.
Right.
I would see it like at the conclusion of Justice League 2, because then that's a great cliffhanger, a real cliffhanger, because there really wasn't a cliffhanger.
No.
I mean, it set things up, but there's no cliffhanger, which I'm glad, because when they said there was, is like, why would you do a cliffhanger when you know you're not getting a sequel? So he set things up, a lot of things up, which is cool if anything happens, but it's not like there's no conclusion to this film. There's like 8, which is fine. I would picture it would be at the end of 2. You know, it's the battle, wherever the heck the battle takes place, and hopefully there's a sacrifice that's made. That's one of the reasons that this does not hold a candle to Marvel, because did any of them even look like they were in a tennis match?
Nope.
I mean, there's not a scratch on them. I mean,
no one.
Again, you're talking about the Flashpoint Paradox, the animated movie, and Flash almost kills himself through the effort. This is a very similar effort here, and nothing. He's okay. He's cool. He's just making his little quips. Nobody looks like they broke a sweat at the end of the movie when they're all standing there. Like, how is this a big battle?
I don't know if this was a continuity issue. Do you remember in the first B versus S and Bruce Wayne when he's going through the nightmares with the K? Nightmares with the K.
Yeah.
The Flash, it seemed like the version from the Apocalypse is the one that reached out to him in the first movie. So I'm sitting here saying, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, because he had armor.
He had armor on.
Right. So
I'm wondering, like, I get it. Multiverse. That's what this is.
Because to me, this is tying into the Flashpoint Paradox. That Flash somehow created this alternate universe, but then Joker basically blames Batman for not saving Lois.
Right.
Which makes me think that in turn, like, it's a ton of fan service. Like, are they talking about Dark Justice, the video game series?
Right.
Where Joker killed Lois? But of course, then Supes decides to, spoiler alert for a game that's been out for like 10 years, then Supes decides to kill Joker.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of fan service in this movie, and in some cases that's cool, and in some cases it doesn't help the story. And to me, that's like, you've got to help the story before you worry about any other little thing. Is like, oh, the fans will like seeing Iris. do something with her. It's like, don't put her in. And again, if it's a 2-hour movie, I get it. If it's a 4-hour movie and there's so much just needless dreck, like the whole sequence with Wonder Woman, it was fun, but we know Wonder Woman's, pardon the language, a badass. Do we really need that proved again?
Right.
There's no point in that. Get rid of it and put in something that's more meaningful to the general story. Do something with Martian Manhunter. Find out that Troy's going to turn into the Atom. Right. Let Iris say something. I mean, come on. And there's a lot of things that could have been done. And the whole sequence with the Joker, what did that do for the film?
The only thing I can think of is Justice League 2. They're going to have alternate timelines running parallel, and
why Joker? I mean, it's kind of interesting, but it's almost more like a fan flick,
right?
And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because to me it doesn't really further this overall story. And it just reminds people of, oh yeah, we got the worst guy who ever played the Joker.
What was I going to say to you? It was about 10 minutes to go in the movie. So we're at the 3 hours and 52-minute run mark. And I'm like, where's the Joker at? I'm sitting here like, well, where is he? Where's that scene?
Yep. And then he doesn't say the line that he says in the trailer, which is interesting.
Right.
Which, this is hardly the first movie where they have a line in a trailer and everyone's waiting for it. And Marvel's done the same thing. Yes. Where it's like, oh, wow, I can't wait to see this. And it's like, it's not even in the movie.
Not even in the movie. Not even in the movie. Yeah. Hey, so since you saw the theatrical version and now we've seen the supersized version of Zack Snyder's version, I will say the Mother Box version or Mother Box version.
Yeah.
Who provided a better score, Junkie XL or Danny Elfman?
Okay. The score, I'm going with Junkie XL. I like Danny Elfman a lot. And I read a review, or actually saw a review, they were talking about Danny Elfman and how he didn't really serve his original score. And it's like, he's playing the exact Batman theme in sections of it. You can picture he's not serving the original score. Of course he was. That's why they got him. I like the score by Junkie XL better. I think it serves the film better. But this is one of the things I really did not like about the film were the song choices
that
are inserted. I get how they serve the characters, but they are so dark and so grim and so heavy. And to me, they're saying, like, look what a genius I am. Look at how deep and amazing this film is. And it's like, make a film that's deep. Make something that's deep, because there's nothing deep about this. Does anybody sacrifice anything? And I'm not saying we have to have a Black Widow scene. I'm just saying, does anybody do anything difficult?
No.
Superman died in the other movie.
Right.
Like, he comes back in this movie, and he is so Superman. That's the problem with Superman. He's so overpowered. It's crazy. He's beyond overpowered in this movie. And it's the same problem that the theatrical cut had. It's like they're barely able to handle Steppenwolf, and then Supes shows up and is like, pardon me, it's done. Like, I can't do anything against him. It's like,
he's like,
what that says is you don't need a Justice League. All you need is Superman. And that's something the animated universe never did. They always made it clear that Superman was not enough. A lot of those movies, Superman goes out as he's the big gun. He's always the big gun. Superman fails a lot. And it's up to somebody else. Like in some cases, it's Flash. A couple movies where it's Flash who saves the day, who in the animated universe is kind of the goofball because it's Wally. It's not Barry.
True.
So everyone plays a role in the animated universe. And in this movie and in the theatrical cut, all they're doing is waiting for the big gun to show up, and oh man, it's over. Yeah. It's like, all we had to do is get this guy in, and that's all they're waiting for. But it's like, Batman. You didn't need to go all through all this stuff. Just get Alfred, who's an incredible genius in this universe. It's like, what can't Alfred do?
Alfred is awesome.
It's like
really too awesome.
Yeah,
really
he's a little too awesome. He's like Iron Man and Reed Richards combined. And it's like, no, let's not do this, okay? But all he had to do is get Alfred. It's like, Alfred, let's go. You can figure this out, Alfred. Let's put this together, and we'll revive Superman, and we're done. You didn't have to go through all this crap. You didn't need Wonder Woman. You didn't need any of these other people. All you needed was Superman. So it to me, it makes the entire movie pointless. There's no team. It's just a bunch of guys who are running around burning 3.5 hours until they can get Supes into the act, and it's like, case closed, buddy. To me, that's a huge problem with this movie. A huge problem with this movie. They're not a team. They're barely supporting characters.
You know where there's some similarities that I see? Where the Avengers have the Hulk.
Yeah.
You got Justice League having Superman.
Yeah, but Hulk fails a lot.
Hulk fails a lot. And
Hulk doesn't even show up for the big fight.
Right. Right.
In one of the movies. So, and that's the big difference. Hulk is the big gun. Sometimes Thor's the big gun, but every time someone else steps up. And DC does that in their animated movies terrifically.
Right.
But again, they just DC used to get it. Back when Christopher Reeve was playing the big Boy Scout, they figured out ways to depower him, to drop it down. And for whatever reason, they don't see the value of figuring this out, that he's too powerful. And this was a perfect time to do it, because black suit.
The black suit.
The purpose of the black suit in the comics, not to get too nerdy, but I'm going to get nerdy, is because it's more fan service. That was the rebirth of Superman in the comics, when Superman was killed and came back. The black suit was to help him absorb more solar energy, because he wasn't as strong as he used to be, because he was dead. And
hey, Brian chimes in. He says Batman versus Superman.
Iron Man versus Batman.
Oh, excuse me. Iron Man versus Batman.
Iron Man versus Batman. Yeah, that's one of those things. We used to do that when I was 6, and I'm still doing it, and I'm like a couple years older than that now. As the saying goes, if Batman has time to prepare, Batman wins anything. I mean, that's kind of how the character is.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's safe to say Batman's main power is the fact that he's rich. He's a genius, but he's rich.
As he says in the film, which is a good moment. And I was glad that there were some lighter moments in this version too.
Yes.
It wasn't all super gloomy, even though the fate of the world hangs in the balance, which typically does in comic book movies.
Right.
It's kind of the point. That was a great line. He didn't really say what his real superpower is. He just made a quip. And of course, he's talking to Flash. So of course he's going to say something smart, because it's Barry Allen, who really is Wally West. I mean, we all know this guy is really Wally West. He's not Barry Allen.
He's not Barry Allen.
He's written as Wally, which I appreciate, because Wally is much more fun than Barry.
Yes. What's more scary to you, parademons or White Walkers?
Oh, White Walkers. I feel like I could beat parademons. I mean, my God, it's like they go down like Tinder. I mean, like they're not dangerous. They're not dangerous. Yeah, okay, they're dangerous, but I mean, yeah, White Walkers are much more scary for sure.
Give me your. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, one thing I did think that made me think of talking about that he's really playing Wally instead of Barry Allen. I really do like the acting job that everybody did in this film, though.
Yes.
Ezra Miller is great as Flash in this odd incarnation that they have of him. Ben Affleck, I think he does a great job. Gal Gadot, which I don't think anyone had heard of it, but I mean, she's terrific as Wonder Woman, and she has been. I mean, even in Wonder Woman 84, which is, like you said, a train wreck, she does her job as well as she can. It's
Right.
not her issue. Yeah, I mean, everyone does a really good job as far as the acting goes. So that's not one of the issues I have. One thing I did want to mention before we disappear, because we're not going to be doing this for 4 hours and 2 minutes.
No.
Although we could. The reviews are interesting. I tend to not look, I might look at Rotten Tomatoes, but Rotten Tomatoes is so skewed because it's scored a 77 right now on Rotten Tomatoes. And people don't realize, they think, oh, 77 is like, people love it. Rotten Tomatoes, their reviews are based on, does a critic recommend it or not? So what this says is 77% of the critics who reviewed it say, yes, it's worth watching. Doesn't necessarily mean a single critic said this is a great movie. It just means it's worth watching.
It's worth watching.
Totally different from Metacritic, which it scores a 53. Metacritic is actually 57. Sorry, it's based on actual reviews. They average the reviews. So 57 is is an average of what a typical critic says. It's like, okay, it's worth watching, but it's not great. And there's a few critics who say it's terrific. There's a lot who are in the middle of the road. There's one who thinks it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for any film. Rotten Tomatoes is not your friend as to whether a movie is great or not. Literally, a film could get 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, and every single critic could say, yeah, it was okay. I watched it. I'd watch it again. And it could get 100.
Are you okay with this being the next to the last time that you see Batfleck as Batman?
Sure. I mean, I like him. I think he's done a great job, but he's not the best Batman.
Okay.
We all know who that is. The guy who gets a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah, he gets a little crazy.
And rumors are still out there that we'll get to see him again, which would be really exciting.
That's going to be great. Hey, Tony D chimes in, says 8.7 out of 10 on IMDb rating. Todd.
Yep. Which again, IMDb, those are just average folks like us. And early on, it's going to be high because who's watching this early on? The people who are hyped to see it. So it'll be interesting to see how far it falls, because it's going to fall.
Okay.
It's a question is how far it's going to fall. I doubt that it's going to fall very far, though. On a scale of 1 to 10, I sure as heck wouldn't give it an 8. But, I'm going to watch it again at some point because I was fully prepared to think this was going to be a train wreck like Batman v Superman. And I have a lot of issues with this movie, a lot of issues. But overall, it was entertaining. Overall, it was an entertaining film. It's fun. I mean, it really could have been an hour shorter or maybe 2 hours shorter. Or if you're going to have 4 hours, do something with some of those other characters.
Well, start to build them out.
Yeah.
Start to build them out a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, so who was your MVP of Zack Snyder's Justice League?
You mean other than Zack?
Other than Zack.
And I'm going to give him credit because, again, he did much better than I expected he would do. He did some really overindulgent stuff for sure, but that's kind of what he does. Sometimes it works. Sometimes he gets sucker punched. Other than Zack, let's see. I would have to. It sure as heck isn't the guy who played Steppenwolf or the gentleman who played Darkseid, because those characters, there's nothing going on with those characters. They're just bad guys. They're frankly boring. I'm going to go, actually, Batman drives it because he's the one who puts the team together, even though he didn't need to.
Right.
I'm actually going to say it's Ezra Miller. He's the one who gives
you. I will agree with you. I will say, definitely, most screen time you're going to say is Batman, but Ezra Miller, I think, steals the show. And I got a question for you. All the cool effects that they showed us, special effects that they showed us with Ezra, the CGI.
Yeah.
Why in the world did they cut all of that out in the the Whedonverse one?
Yeah, good question. No, I did. Tony D says you guys are brutal. It's like, I guess. Hey, we're being nice to Ezra. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I've been knocking Zach a lot. Joss Whedon is the guy who needs to get knocked.
He's the one who really needs to get knocked.
He's the one who released the theatrical version.
Yes.
So, and there were good points to his film too, but they're few and far between. Few and far between. It's odd because some of the effects in this movie are great. And in some cases, I just rewatched part of it before we came on, and there's a scene in the first battle when Darkseid comes and he's battling the ancient king of men and the Atlanteans and the Amazons. And an Amazon jumps up on her horse, and it's so clearly terrible CGI because she has no weight to her.
Yeah.
The way she jumps up and lands.
Yeah.
It's that classic bad CGI that when you're just watching it the first time, you don't really pay attention, but when you're looking closely, it's like, Jesus, come on, man. It's like you've seen people jump. Do better. And there's so much of that. We were talking before about the character of Zeus, and it's like I was surprised that an actor played him because he's so shiny and he looks so CGI. They did such a layer on him. And there's, in Darkseid himself. Darkseid...
Sparkly.
Darkseid and Sparkly Wolf. I think we're at the point when you can make CGI characters look like real people.
Yes.
Thanos, despite they obviously can't exist, they look like they exist. And Darkseid and Sparkly Wolf, they just scream, hey, look at this cool CGI we did back in '97 for this video game. It's like, granted, it's better than the trailer because the trailers, they look terrible. They might as well be 8-bit characters. The trailers are so bad.
Wow.
And at least they're better now, but it's like, man alive. How are we supposed to take this seriously when it's clearly computer generated? It's just terrible. That's one of the problems I have with this is like, reportedly, initially their deal was they were going to give him $20 to $30 million because they thought they were just going to finish special effects. And he had reshoots and blah, 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 which most of the reshoots are worth it. So now there's reports, and they're not saying anything, but there's reports that they spent as much as $70 million.
Oh.
If you spent $70 million, y'all should have hired a better special effects company because, dude, two of your main characters are not cutting it.
So between the first theatrical cut,
and creative bookkeeping, it'll never make money.
Yeah, I'm sitting here saying, okay, marketing, you're upwards on 450 to 500 mil, and you make about 850 mil, and maybe you get a few subscribers. I don't know. I guess it depends.
It's a big gamble.
Were you expecting to see Green Lanterns? Were you expecting to see Ryan Reynolds pop up?
I was not expecting to see Ryan Reynolds. That would have been fun. He probably would have offed himself knowing how much he loves the character.
Yes.
I was not expecting Lanterns to pop up. I kind of wish they hadn't because, again, it's like snuffed just like that. It's a lantern and it's like zero threat.
Zero threat.
And it really didn't make sense because the lantern gets snuffed like he's nothing, and then Darkseid can't handle Ares, basically. So you're saying Ares is who Wonder Woman destroyed. Same actor, actually, which is kind of cool. So kind of thinking here, and this is playing if so-and-so beats so-and-so, then blah, blah, blah. But it's like, so Wonder Woman beat Ares. Ares beat pretty much Ares himself, beat Darkseid.
Right.
So Wonder Woman should sure be able to beat Darkseid. She couldn't even handle Steppenwolf. Like, why do you set these things up? It's like, don't do these things. Don't have the Lantern show up. And blow it. I mean, when Marvel has Captain Marvel and they're setting her up as this extremely powerful being, obviously, and there was a reason she couldn't handle Thanos. She was pulled from the fight, you know. So every time something happens, when you have an OP character in Marvel, typically they have a creative way of writing themselves out of it, right, instead of just setting them up as like, well, they're incredibly powerful and everyone else is crap. You know, and it goes back, all their live action is like, it's like they have a playbook and says, okay, let's do 5 stupid things that if people think about it, they're going to say, why did you do this?
So question, what would you prefer, comic book or HBO Max series for Jim Lee's storyboard for Justice League 2 and Justice League 3?
Oh, HBO Max.
Okay.
It's going to cost a little more money to do it. Comic book. That's not up to me. I don't know if I want to shell out, like $120 million to do that.
Right.
And again, I would watch this again, and I recommended people watch it. But at the same time, saying is like this, there's some issues in this thing. Compare this to WandaVision. Like WandaVision is, and I'm sure there are people out there who don't like WandaVision. It's like WandaVision to me is an amazing piece of work. And
I really enjoyed WandaVision.
Yeah, is this remotely comparable? I mean, they're very different vehicles, but overall quality, which one is better? There's no comparison.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, like, you see that the way that Disney is handling Disney Plus,
yeah,
with Marvel content on Disney Plus, I'm like, this is a totally, and of course it's going to be tied into the movies, but
right,
this is a totally different vehicle where you could just be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to continue my character arc, but it's going to be on a Disney Plus supersized show, and I'll get 8 episodes versus a 2-hour movie.
And depending on when you're listening or watching or whatever, tomorrow Disney has another hot ticket coming up.
Yes.
Really looking forward to.
Really looking forward to that.
This looks like the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Minus Captain America, although there is a Captain America or 2 in this, maybe even 3. But this just looks, from the trailers, and again, trailers can lie, but this looks fantastic.
Plus, you're getting, how many episodes are we getting? 6 or 8?
6 episodes.
So we're getting hopefully close to 6 hours worth of content.
Yeah, about 6 hours. A long format story. I mean, one of my favorite, Anthony Mackie, is like freaking amazing actor.
Yes.
Love Anthony Mackie. And I didn't realize this until I read this week that he did not audition. Unlike almost everybody else in Marvel.
Really?
Yeah. Feige called him in and said, how would you like to play? It's like,
wow.
Yeah. Because he saw what most of his fans see, is like he sees him in other movies, like, man, this guy's got some chops.
Yeah.
And he does. He really does.
I'm going to say Mother Boxes versus the Anti-Life Equation.
Anti-Life Equation.
Yeah.
If we get a continuation of this, the Anti-Life Equation, totally interesting.
Totally.
We've seen the Mother Boxes, and they're super powerful, but, you get a couple strong guys there pulling them apart, and it's like, they're done.
That's it. Done.
It's like, we've seen their threat. The Anti-Life Equation is going to be pretty fantastic. And I would, I love your suggestion. Hopefully HBO gets a lot of subscribers to HBO Max out of this.
Right.
And they're able to sell this movie theatrically overseas or something where they know how to handle pandemics. And they turn over an HBO Max universe to Snyder. That would be cool. Hopefully he does well. He certainly can. He's made some terrific films. We would see, but that would be great to see this story pan out with the actors that are in it.
Thoughts on a multiverse with Bruce Wayne, Lois Lane, and Superman love triangle?
Ew. I think Bruce is a little dark to be in love with anybody at this point.
He is totally jaded.
Yeah.
Totally just.
He's still pining for Vicky
Vale.
Although, if we can get that first gentleman back in, Mr. Keaton,
yes,
that would be interesting. That would be interesting.
I keep hearing he's going to be in a Flash movie.
I hope he is. I hear that too. I really hope he is.
Hearing that. I keep hearing Batfleck. Of course, Keaton.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see our other friend from the trilogy.
It would be nice. It would be very nice.
That would be awesome. I don't expect it, but that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. And I'm not sure if this is going to happen too, but I also heard that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is Thomas Wayne, which would be
sold.
Fantastic.
Sold.
Because Thomas, if viewers don't know the Paradox story, Thomas Wayne is a hugely important character.
Yes.
In the Flashpoint Paradox. And I would love, I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is great, but I would love him as that character because Thomas Wayne is an interesting character in that story. I'll just put it that way.
You know the greatest thing is we all know the Batman origin story, but it was extra special in B versus S with having Maggie and Negan as his parents.
It was, wasn't it?
It was. I thought it was so cool, man. I mean, I don't know. That's just
they were destined for tragedy, that couple.
Yes. I was walking out, and I looked. I said, "Oh my goodness, that's Maggie." I said, "Oh."
Nice to know they got together all right at one point in their lives.
Yes. I guess we can touch upon it now. The epilogue.
The epilogue, yes. Which one? the epilogue, yeah. Which is how many parts were there? 5?
There were about 5.
Yeah,
there were about 5. It was like a spider web. It was like you're sitting there because with the Marvel movies, we're trained to say, okay, mid credit, post credit.
Exactly.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
It was to the point where I was already out of my seat and I'm standing there in front of my TV. I'm like, okay, what's happening?
Yeah, this was the Return of the King format.
I'm like,
oh no, it's not. Oh no, it's not.
Deathstroke.
Yeah.
Deathstroke and Lex Luthor.
Like the Death and Lex.
I liked where that was going.
Yeah, definitely.
Only if they do, if Batfleck does, a one-off 7 or 9 episode standalone Batman, miniseries.
Yeah,
I like where that's going. Because it's kind of like, two rich guys.
Yeah.
Going against each other.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on? Let's see. That flash forward in the apocalypse.
Also sets up. I'm not sure what. I'm assuming that would be like if they were ever going to actually do it, that would be like maybe Justice League 3 or 4. I don't know that would be 2. Maybe that would be where they would go immediately and address that story. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out, but we know where it's going. Either it's going to end in tragedy because that's an alternate universe and they're all gone, or they manage to fix it and then they come back. So it's kind of like, I don't even know if I want to see it. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't even know if I want to see it because I know what's going to happen. One of 2 things is going to happen. Good guys will win or the bad guys. And I know that's really what happens in any superhero movie, but to me, it's kind of not interesting enough. To me, if it plays out more as like an intro to the Flashpoint Paradox, which I don't know why it would, but it kind of does.
Right.
That's much more interesting. That's much more interesting.
I'm wondering if, okay, so we know Batfleck, he says he's done.
Yeah.
Of course.
Let me say one thing about that. The interest, to me, what the problem with the nightmare scenario, that now Superman is a pawn of. So, and they've established that Superman is just incredibly overpowered.
Right.
Superman comes up. Well, they're all dead. Unless he decides he wants to talk. But Superman shows, they're done. They're done. So, and again, that's the problem with setting up Superman as this ridiculously overpowered character. So to me, that's kind of a dead end, the way they set that up, unfortunately. Be interesting, but I don't really see much playing out with that.
What is the other thing I was going to think of? I could see we go flash forward, but like I said, I don't know. It's tricky because I would like to for HBO Max, and I don't think they're mature enough for HBO Max to turn around and start to tie in TV shows and movies together.
I think they are terrified of that at this point because the Justice League theatrical cut really bit them in the butt on that.
Right.
So then I think they made the wise choice in cutting loose, just like when Universal did with their Dark Universe when they decided to make Tom Cruise the focal point of a mummy movie.
Right.
It's like, oh my God. And just do separate individual stories that can stand on their own. They're going to be more interesting. I mean, let's face it, Marvel pretty much caught lightning in a bottle. And they have some movies that aren't great, but they really haven't made a misstep. I mean, you can't look at any Marvel movie and say, oh my God, that was terrible. You can do that with a lot of DC movies, sadly.
So here's what I'm thinking. Well, here's what we're seeing and what we're hearing also is there's going to be multiple versions of these characters going on simultaneously, which should be extremely confusing for people.
I would think it'd be kind of weird to have Batfleck running around as the Batman who's been in the business for decades, and you have Robert Pattinson who's in his first year as Batman.
Right.
I think that's a little confusing, like you said.
And they're going to have HBO Max series with I think Batman Year One or it's not Gotham, but it's not Batman. It's kind of like I don't even know what it is.
And then when you tie in all the TV shows, you got Superman and Lois running around, and I tell you one thing, I can't think of the actor's name who plays Superman in that. Mm-hmm. He totally looks like an alien. Dude, you're weird looking. You're better looking than I am, that's for sure. But I'm not trying to play Superman either. Wow. Yeah, and those DC shows, man. They would be wise not to tie into the DC TV shows at all. Just because they're so they definitely have their fans, millions and millions of fans. But yeah, they gotta stay out of that. And I know the two Flashes met in one of the Flash shows, and that's kind of cool. But
yeah, it was kind of cool. It was like that and they kept it under wraps. That's what I really like.
Yeah,
they kept it under wraps, and they did it with a WB budget.
Yeah.
So what's your overall rating for this movie?
My overall rating for this movie, are we going 4 stars or 5 stars?
Let's go 5 stars.
Let's go 7, just to be different. It's Ted's 7-star movie rating system. All right, 5 stars. He says, I'm gonna go. Wow, I'm just gonna go 2.5.
Okay.
There are aspects to this movie I really don't like, but there are some parts that I really do like, and it's a vast improvement on the theatrical cut. And it's kind of like Snyder deserves the success because Warner's didn't believe what he was doing, and he clearly was doing something better than what Warner's wanted. So I'm still just going to go with 2.5. If someone says it's a 5-star movie, I think they're crazy. But I may find out here. What are you going to give it?
I was going to give it a solid 3.
Okay,
A solid 3 for overall for Zack Snyder's vision, for him to be able to push the vision through, which made a lot of, you got to give him his credit for that. Yeah,
absolutely. This is clear the movie he wanted to make. I think he made some missteps, but he has a little more pull than I do. So I don't think he's too concerned about what I think about his movie. But yeah, I can see people giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I can't see anybody, like you said, is like, no, this is not Infinity Game, dude.
No. not at all. Not at all. I like the breadcrumbs at the end. I do like the breadcrumbs at the end because you don't know what may happen here.
Very true.
And it kind of leaves you out there where you're like, okay, so is there a lifeline or is there not a lifeline?
Well, the fact that the Snyder Cut exists is proof in itself that you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
There's no reason for this to exist except the fact that the fans literally demanded this over and over and over and over.
Yes.
And I remember when they were first talking about it, I was like, there's no Snyder Cut. It was like,
there is no Snyder Cut.
Yeah. And there really wasn't because he spent $70 million to create it. But it's just because they say this is done doesn't mean it is. I mean, I remember this is one of the reasons again, the fact that it's a 4-hour cut instead of 4 1-hour episodes, to me, that said Warner's had zero faith in this. We got to do something with it. Let's dump it on HBO Max because we know a lot of people at least are going to watch it.
Right.
We put it on a 4-hour thing so they'll all watch it because if they watch 1 hour, they're not going to come back for the hour 2 next week because they're going to think the first hour sucks.
And like I said, that's what I was thinking. What I was thinking was, part of me was like, are they going to release 1 episode and then you'd have to wait week by week over like 4 weeks? And I was like, that would be terrible.
And Godzilla vs. Kong comes out 2 weeks from now on HBO Max. Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out tomorrow. I mean, they pretty much sabotage this to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're telling me, and there are execs on record they're not on record because they won't be on record, but they're Warner's execs anonymously saying that this was the train wreck that we were afraid of. This is why we took it from Snyder. This cut.
Gotcha.
So, and clearly they're wrong because this is clearly much better than the theatrical version. I don't love it by any means, but it's not bad. It's entertaining. It's worth watching. There are a lot of it that I don't like, but compared to the theatrical version, it's much better. Nice. So the Warners clearly didn't know what they were doing. And big shock, how often do they know what they're doing? Not too often.
Not too often. So, hey, you do a whole lot of stuff, with Seahawks, Cinema Savants. What's coming up on your schedule?
What's coming up on my schedule is Rob and I will be talking about some 4-hour movie that just came out. I can't think of the name of it offhand. So we'll be talking about that. I'm curious to see what Rob is going to think of this because I literally have no concept if he hates it, loves it, where he is on it. We will, of course, be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Seahawks are doing some interesting things, like basically not doing anything. And Russell Wilson ain't doing anything either, happily. God, that's a weird story, but that's another 4-hour show. So
I gotta have you come back and talk a little Russell Wilson.
Sure. You ought to have that Lee fellow come back and talk about.
Oh yeah. That's what it's been so long since I've spoken with Lee. But definitely want to have him come back. I think I texted him one day. I was like, "Hey, would love to connect with you on this," and he was like, "Sure, no problem. Let me know." But
that was legitimate, and I also know he's busy. He doesn't lead the life of luxury like I do, where it's just I'm just going to hang and chill. He actually has a job and he has to work and all that kind of stuff. So
That's a weird story. And the only thing that's weirder is this Deshaun Watson story.
oh my God, talk about crazy.
That's the only thing that's weirder going on, and
Yeah, that's scary.
yeah, because
I hope it's not true for the alleged victim's sake. But then why would they be lying? You know, it goes back to, we were talking about at the beginning of the show. It was like, yeah, why do people do this crap?
I don't know.
The endless question. Yeah, that's a nightmare. So if you are an NFL team and you have a disgruntled quarterback or a quarterback who may be somewhat disgruntled, because it's not even clear that Russell Wilson is disgruntled, which would you rather have? The guy who wants an offensive line protecting him, or the guy who has now 3 accusations of sexual assault?
Right.
For us, that's
hey, the one thing I will say for both, do the both of them want to also share duties as GM, or is that just Watson?
Well, in Deshaun Watson's case, he can't do worse. Oh my God, Houston Texans. I don't think Russ wants to be the GM, but I do think he has legitimate concerns about getting some protection on that line, because
he definitely does.
Yeah, that's not a good offensive line, and it's not terrible like it has been for a few years, but they're not good. But here's the thing, Russ, when you're making 20% of the salary, I don't remember what is off the top of my head, 23%, doesn't leave a whole lot of dollars for all the rest of the guys. You got to have players. So, and I never knock players for I don't care if they make $160 million, $260 million, because there's always someone making more money because they're the ones signing the paycheck.
Right.
So athletes are not overpaid. The people signing those checks are the ones that are overpaid. But it's a team sport, and you got to be aware of that. You got to be able to give something up. That's just the reality. There's a salary cap, and
I didn't want to mention him, but I'm gonna mention him because respect is there. Respect is there with that Brady guy who always renegotiates his contract or extends it or pushes it out or turns it into a signing bonus, or so that there's other funding to go around to have the other pieces or keep them upright.
Or takes money under the table. Not that I said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and realistically, you're going to get that money back in endorsements if you're good.
Yep.
Does it really matter who's paying you? What did Michael Jordan do forever? Did Michael Jordan ever get market value until like the very end of his career?
The very end. The last 2 or 3 seasons with the Bulls was market value.
Up until then, because he didn't need it.
He didn't need it.
He had certain shoe companies that he owned practically. And that's the way to do it. That's the way to handle it. And it's legal. It's above board.
That is.
If you're that popular, people want to buy your apparel and your hot dogs or whatever you're selling. Mike Ditka, whatever Ditka was selling. That's the way to handle the situation. So hopefully they can figure that out. Because it's interesting. I don't know if you saw what the deal was, and now this is the Seahawks show all of a sudden. Yeah. If you saw what the reported deal was that the Bears offered.
Like 3 first-round picks?
3 first-round picks.
A third round.
A third round. A certain beast defensive player.
Yes.
And Achilles Smith. And they said, and Pete says, nope.
Nope.
Which to me tells Russ, oh my God, he must really like me. He must really think they need me, because I don't really care. First round picks to me is like, Russell Wilson is a generational player. A lot of people don't think he is. I think he's a generational player. That's worth so much more than a first round pick.
Oh, totally.
So, I would turn it down too. It's a heck of a haul, and you're not going to get better than that, but that's how much the Seahawks value Wilson.
Yes.
Most teams would have taken that. Most teams have taken that in the past. So hopefully he looks at that and realizes, okay, we got to make this work. We got to make this work. So, because to me, that spoke volumes. You turned down.
Totally did. It's like, nope, no thanks.
Because
that's the Bears unloading their clip.
Yeah, Russ is not the kind of quarterback that Pete really needs. He loves Russ, but he wants to run. He wants to play smash mouth football. He wants a strong defense. It's like they were handing him his team.
Yeah. And
he said no. So to me, that should tell Russ, okay, we got to fix this. Yeah, and clearly doesn't look like he's going anywhere now, unless there's some weird 3-team deal or some kind of thing like that.
But just fix the O-line, keep them upright.
Yeah.
And you'll be good. Because Russ, you're always in the game with this guy. Come on.
He makes some errant throws at times, and he makes some odd decisions, especially towards the end of the season he was. But he also just, jeez, he makes some ridiculous plays. And, and some people say, well, part of the sacks are partly his fault because he's extending plays.
Mm-hmm.
True. But if he's not extending plays, he's on his butt.
That's true.
Every time. He has to extend those plays. He's
true.
That's true. And more often when he's extending the plays, it's like he's not even threading the needle. I mean, Tyler Lockett's catching something that a human shouldn't be able to catch. So, because Russ is putting it right where it needs to be. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the situation. But yeah, his destinations are drying up. But yeah, after the Bears, like you said, they just fired the whole clip.
They fired the whole clip and said, "Hey, here's everything."
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would take. I mean, no one is going to be. Mike Ditka is no longer coaching, so he's not going to make the offer. Like, here's this draft. Here's my entire draft
for the next 5 years.
That's going to happen. So crazy times.
Crazy times. Hey, I want to thank you for coming through and on a moment's notice, as always. You are the absolute best. Tell us where we can find the podcast that you do and everything that you're writing. And
you can find us the Nikki X Show. You can find Cinema Savants. Nikki X is not for all audiences. I'll just say that. There's a few rough words in there, just like Zack Snyder inserted into his cut, so you get an R rating. No beheadings, though. We don't cut anybody's head off. Not lately. And Cinema Savants, where we talk about movies, and we're not savants. We're should be the opposite of Cinema Savants. And the Unreal Todd, I tweet about once every 6 years. So there you go.
How about Batman in the epilogue dropping an F-bomb? I thought that was the greatest.
That was quite interesting. Quite interesting.
I said, you got your R rating.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's and I tend to use words that sailors have never heard, so it's okay with me. But when they just drop a few F-bombs, like, oh, we're going to get this rating so people think we're edgy, it's like, come on, man.
Come on.
But it was enjoyable to see, and it suited the situation. So that was fun. And if any version of Batman is going to drop it, it should be Batfleck, because, again, it suits that version of the character.
Yes.
He's tired, man. He is tired of doing this for decades. So he has earned the right to say that.
You see the wings. He's got the Paulie Walnuts wings. I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Paulie Walnuts.
Hey, we're going to close the show out. Ways to follow the show is latenightparents.com. Make sure you follow Todd Vandenberg at the Unreal Todd. For our replay listeners on Haps, he's Todd Vandenberg.